Hello, and welcome back to the world of Landermause. It's been a while, hasn't it? Sorry for the delays, just got really busy over these past couple of months, but I'm back and ready to show you all the new era of Landermause, the piokontassic. Wait, but that looks exactly the same as before. Hold on, let's fix that. There we go, the drifting world of Landermause, created by continental drift and the ever-changing world temperature molding the new world. A new Landermause is waiting for us to explore it, and while we will see it all, first, we will start in the center continent of Mousekopf to see how all the bat species there have evolved with all the competition. One of the most successful animals in the piokontassic, the flux, and their cousins, the kirks, dominated the grazer niches. They have a very bright future ahead in the piokontassic. Well, the kirks do. The flux success is extremely short-lived as overpopulation and new species appear. Nearly all of them would die out from the competition, but some might just survive. Who knows? That's for later, however, so let's focus on the kirks first. With their more developed body plan, they would quickly become the most successful grazers of their continent, due to multiple factors such as low competition and a lack of predators. Obviously, this wouldn't last forever. As I mentioned before, overpopulation would happen, with no predators around to keep them in check. So in order to survive in this crowded world, the kirks would become much faster and more nimble in order to reach food before anyone else could. This led to the birth of the fuse, having lost their wings in favor of stronger legs. These bats became known for their agility. Similar to hares on Earth, these animals live quick-paced short lives and reproduce quickly. Depending on the amount of food available, these animals could experience massive population booms or dips in the span of a couple years. While it acted as a way to find food quicker, these animals' agility would come in handy when it came to easily dodging their future predators. Not all of the fuses would stick this closely to their original lifestyle. With all the food around, some of the fuses would grow much bigger than their predecessors, such as the herma. These animals used their ancestors' agility to easily maneuver the vast landscapes around them as they traveled from flat plains to dense jungles. Their size allowed them to reach leaves and fruit normally out of reach for their cousins. While they were the biggest land animal at the start of the new era, many would be quick to outgrow them. While the kirks may be thriving, that doesn't mean I forgot about the other animals in this seed world. The Landermause would also thrive in this new era. While grazing is nice, it's not the only niche available here. These brown bats would be the first to step up, as the changing environment created new food sources for them to eat and thrive from. One of these new food sources came right from the overpopulation problem. No predators mean there were a lot of corpses just lying around. With this easy source of meat now available, Landermause would be allowed to become much bigger and more carnivorous. Roaming in small clans, the cuz wanders the plains for its next meal, taking full advantage of the dead animals near them. While they have become accustomed to being scavengers, even becoming bald, similar to vultures, this doesn't mean they don't hunt. It is quite common to see a cuz clan take down a full-grown herma together. Nowadays, they usually only scavenge because bigger predators steal their kills, since corpses aren't as common as they were at the era's beginning. Despite the appearance of new predators at the Naken, and its descendants would keep a tight grip on their apex predator spot. To keep their niche, their descendants the Sturm would become much bigger and more graceful than the Naken. Hopping from tree to tree, these predators were the terror of fruits bats all around, or well, they were at the beginning of the era. As time went on, they would become mostly arboreal predators as the cuz became evolved into bigger, less specialized predators. Why don't we go over the descendants of the cuz really quick, since I've already mentioned them. Starting with the Jephus, as prey animals would continue becoming bigger, the cuz would have much more options to their diet, creating the Jephus, a pack-hunting bat with a strong bite that could take down animals much bigger than them. Using their spotted fur, they typically relied on sneaking up on their prey before striking. They also have an incredible sense of smell that allows them to track down prey from incredibly long distances. Another descendant of the cuz, the Bars, is one of the largest land predators of their era, and much more solitary compared to their cousins. Similar to a bear, these giants spend their days alone unless they are fighting or mating. While they are one of the strongest predators around, they are quite rare because of their strict carnivore diet that specializes in large herbivores. A lot of the time these predators survive by using their strength to bully other predators out of their kills. With all these new predators around, the herma is put in a tight spot. While there, speed is normally enough to survive. It won't always work in their favor, so some herma would begin to evolve better defenses against the new predators. One of these adaptations was a set of 4 strong horns located at the front of their face. The funters traveled in large herds across the land using their new bulk to knock away any predators nearby. Whenever a predator came near them, the herd would form a large circle around the young and elderly members using their horns to protect them. With this new adaptation, these herbivores would quickly diverse and spread in this era. A close cousin of the funters is the bee fucks, who decided to take their new bulk to the limit. They are the largest land animal on Landermause. While it isn't as useful when they mature, young bee fucks use their unique black and white fur to blend in with the tall grass around them. While they travel in large herds like their cousins, their herds are made up entirely of females, and their offspring males of this species are solitary and prefer to claim their own territory rather than live in a herd. They will only allow females to come near them and will chase out anything else in their territory. Deep in the many jungles of Landermause, a 12-foot giant lurks within the brush, eating the many leaves around it. One of, if not the largest animal on Landermause, the languks, shares an uncanny resemblance to okapi on Earth. Just like their buffalo-like cousins, the languks' camouflage mostly works during their childhood when they are most vulnerable. While mostly solitary, once a year thousands of languks will travel to one place in order to mate. During this time, males will lower their necks in order to wrestle with each other for mating rights. Don't worry though, they aren't harmed during this. It's just a quick match to show the females which male is the strongest in their area. Before we move on to the next herbivore, why don't we look closer at the languk here? Think I see something below it. Ah, there we go. Now that we're closer, I can see that it's clearly a rubber ant colony below the languk. Bats aren't the only animals in this world. Don't forget about the many insects on Landermause. Descendants of honeypot ants, the raider ants, have abandoned making hives and instead live nomadic lifestyles, traveling with their colony in search of ant hives to raid or prey to hunt. They are the biggest species of ant currently, and have developed large jaws with their more aggressive lifestyle. Now, let's wrap up the last of the horned foxes, so we can move on to the other bat families. The humble batalope went down a different route. Instead of relying on bulk, it instead became faster than its predators. Being able to outspeed most predators, they only use their straight horns, unless absolutely necessary or when fighting with other batalopes. While being one of the fastest animals outspeeds most predators, that doesn't mean they are completely safe. With the arrival of barses and Gephis, vampire bats have been pushed away from their apex predator niches, but that doesn't mean they can't still thrive. A prime example of this is the leopis. While it isn't the top predator, it still thrives in its niche, as they have specialized in order to survive. They specifically eat batalopes, hermas, and fuses, prey animals, typically too fast for most predators to catch. Not for the leopis, however. With their unparalleled speed, they can actually catch these animals in record time, and unlike other animals like the cuz, they can protect their kills by climbing up into trees so rivals cannot reach them. Now that we went over most of the bigger animals, why don't we go to the little guys for a bit? Starting with the flux. While their faster cousins have thrived in this new world, they have survived, at the very least, but if they want that to continue, they will have to adapt or die. The flux last descendants survived by gaining long white quills on their body to deter any predators from attacking them. This has also allowed them to keep their clumsy bodies, since their quills are extremely effective. Enough about flying foxes for now, though another of the terrestrial bat species, the widerwurf, would also diversify in this new changing world. Starting off, some would fully go into the mole niche, spending almost all of their time underground. The gray mouse developed large, strong claws in order to dig out large, complex tunnels and burrows underground for their colonies. They have abandoned their fig-eating ways, causing them to lose their bright-colored fur. They have one of the largest systems of tunnels in Landermause, so large that only one animal has a bigger structure than this. And that animal, of course, is a species of ant, specifically the Hogel ant, a polar opposite of their raider cousins. These ants create the largest hives in all of Landermause, with thousands of ants within their hives that are almost impossible to break. These hives have multiple specific chambers, one for eggs, one for the queen, and one for the honey ants. Some ants have even spread out a bit, finding new places to make their hives with, instead of making it with the same old materials. Holsteller ants are a prime example of this, as they typically make their hives within dead pieces of wood. If you try to chop a dead piece of wood on Landermause, other than the ants, you will be met with the many tunnels within the wood. As successful as the ants are, however, they are just like any other animal. They have their own predators to worry about. And that predator would come from a descendant of the mole bat. With their strong claws and great sense of smell, these animals are great candidates for an anteater. This anteater came in the form of the hutcher bat, an aardvark-sized animal with arms strong enough to break through any mound. While they have the tools to break into the ants' hives, they still have a long way to go, since most ant bites will ward them off eventually. While much less social than their predecessors, these animals still stay together since they are monogamous and typically mate for life to guarantee their offspring's survival. Other than their claws, their only form of defense is their aggression and their dense fur. That's not the last we will hear from these bats, however. Before we move on, look over a close cousin of the mole bat for a second. The mouse is a small bat that eats insects and plant roots. Similar to rodents, they live short lives and reproduce fast. When they're not scurrying through the underbrush, you can find them sticking their heads out on the lookout for predators. Just like their ancestors, their predator is a descendant of the vampire bats. While most Nakin went for the top predator niche, some stayed true to their roots and stuck to being smaller predators in the underbrush. One of these animals was the worma. With its long, slim body, it could fit into any tunnel its prey created. They are quite successful hunters and sometimes hunted when they didn't need to, creating a stockpile of corpses for them to come back to in their burrows if food is ever scarce. But the fate of the mouse is not to just be another prey animal living in fear of vampire bats. No, there was a wide open niche waiting for them. In the swamps and rivers of Landermause, there are many aquatic plants just waiting for a herbivore to eat from, which is exactly what the flusvert did with its webbed feet. It was a fax swimmer that could dive down for aquatic plants. Different species had varying sleep schedules depending on the crocophins in their area. If the crocophins were nocturnal, these bats were diurnal, and if the dolphins were diurnal, the bats were nocturnal to avoid them. A larger cousin of these bats lived within the many marshes of Landermause, using its height to eat the aquatic plants and the leaves above them. With their long, dark legs, they could hide themselves from predators below them. They often lived in patriarchal herds, with an alpha male leading the defense against most predators. Before I move on to the arboreal animals, I'd like to go over one more vampire bat, one that has taken a stand against the new predators. The Dacouse is a bulkier cousin of the worma. With its thick skin and short temper, these vampires often get into fights with much bigger predators. While they obviously won't win, they will at least might the fight, just not worth it for their rivals, making said rivals avoid them. While they often eat small burrowing just like their cousins, they will sometimes visit swamps or rivers to hunt croaker fish. Now that we're done with the animals on the ground, why don't we head up to the trees to see how the flying and arboreal bats are doing? While the Landermause isn't arboreal, its descendants and cousins sure are. While most brown bats went the route of a top predator, some stuck to their insectivore ways, like the Spitzes, a small bat that has taken up the niche reptiles usually occupy. It scurries in the trees and grasses searching for insects. In order to protect themselves, they have evolved spurs on their legs to deter predators and rival Spitzes. Now, it's hammer time. I've been neglecting them all video, so it's time to go over all the hammerhead bats that have evolved. Starting with the sinmer, while its climbing style isn't the most effective, they have made it work in this new era. Using the same strategy as sloths, they slowly climb through the trees, blending in with the branches, but that's not their only defense. Sinmers have gained the ability to accurately mimic other species, specifically predators, to help them survive. If a predator comes nearby, the sinmer will loudly mimic a larger predator to scare them off. This has also made their mating calls more elaborate, as males now sing full-on songs to impress females. Males also have a white patch of fur on their faces to attract mates that only grows once the male is fully mature. While sinmers have stuck to their slow-paced lifestyle that only applies to them, since all their cousins adopted a more effective climbing style. In order to survive the new arboreal predators, a prime example of this is the icus, a small arboreal bat species. As I said, in response to the newer predators, these bats adopted a more active climbing style to avoid predators. The males of this species typically have much bigger faces to produce louder mating calls. This isn't the end of their innovations, however. Having a grip on the arboreal herbivore niche, many could grow much larger, such as the grogger, but size isn't all that matters. While their climbing is fine, the singular finger on their front legs can make it hard to hold onto branches. So similar to pandas on Earth, they have evolved a pseudo-thumb to help them grip onto objects, allowing them climb better than ever. It doesn't stop there, however. With their new digit, the grower's descendants would have an over almost all the other animals, since they are the only ones with multiple fingers. For example, with the mantis, their extra finger allowed them to hold onto food or other objects. These social animals lived in large, tight-knit groups that used their larger numbers to deter predators. While it is present in both genders, their dark manes are mostly used by males to attract mates. The darker the mane, the more attractive you are. They also practice grooming with their long tongues, often to keep parasites out. With all these factors combined, this family could expand even outside of their native forests and into new niches that hadn't been taken yet. One group of mantis would settle into the bamboo forests of Landermause, while many animals lived in the bamboo. None would make their entire diet bamboo. Similar to pandas, the mouse boos specifically eats bamboo for most of its diet. With its pseudo-thumb, could easily hold and break the bamboo around it. Don't let their appearance and diet fool you, however. These mandrill-sized creatures are much stronger than you think, and will not hesitate to fight any intruders. Now that we have gotten past all the climbers, it's time we check out all our flyers. Starting with the pygmy brown bats. In this new era, they saw an opportunity in the giants around them. While the herbivores could fend off any predator, they struggled against much smaller creatures like parasites that were often in parts of their body they couldn't reach. But you know what can reach those areas? A small insect-eating bat with a long tongue. Similar to oxpeckers on Earth, large herbivores will tolerate sawdust eating off their back in order to rid themselves of parasites. But not every sawdust is what it seems. Between their massive flocks, we find a descendant of the vampire bat hiding in plain sight. The falger has evolved to look similar to cleaner bats in order to blend in with their flocks. Because of this, they can follow the cleaners to potential hosts and remember the locations of said hosts long after they leave the cleaners' flock. They can now get their meals much easier. A bat you may recognize from the previous era, Landermause, has gone through some changes as it adapts to open niches. Like pollinators, while there are plenty of insects around that get the job done, there are plenty of flowers to go around. The Landermause has evolved a longer mouth and tongue in order to easily reach the flower's nectar. Since they no longer eat figs, they have lost the pigment that gave them all their color. Not all of the Landermause descendants would go down such a specialized path. However, some would go down a much different path. Like the bowger, a bat who lived in large groups together in complicated nests they built to protect themselves. The bowger had strong legs used to help carry sticks or other items to help build their nests, which were usually made from the same figs that gave them their yellow ears. These bats focused more on intelligence to help avoid predators and work together. And now it is time for one last flying fox. This time, it actually flies. Before I move on to our flying predators, The lizzie is a small bat that mostly eats the grasses and fallen fruits on the ground. Unlike other bats, they live within burrows. They don't dig out these burrows, however they can't dig, so they will either move into an abandoned burrow or lead predators to the animals currently living in the burrow to drive them out and move in themselves. They typically do this with dacows and can often be seen around their territories. Now on to our last batch of predators. Similar to its grounded cousins, the Dracula would experience a threat from a type of brown bat, specifically the miras. In this new era, they have settled across the entire world, and Mousekopf is no exception. They didn't start as a threat, however. At first, they settled within the few cliffs just like their ancestors, making their nests on top of them. The Euphese's diet was mostly made up of fish and other aquatic creatures, but here, they could hunt much more. With vampire bats as the only other predators, they could easily take their spot, since they could consume more rather than just drinking blood. The Mezen was a large aerial predator that ruled the early skies of Landermause that almost drove the Draculas to extinction. With their long teeth, they could easily kill most of their quickly after they grabbed them with their claws. With how strong their tails had gotten, they almost acted as a third hand when they hunted prey. For the Dracula bat, this situation was adapt or die. It was good run being at the top, but just like its cousins, it would have to go into other niches to survive. All the new competition led to the birth of the Nosferatu, a smaller predator that specialized for smaller prey. Having lost all but one of their fingers, their wings now resemble pteranodon wings more than bat wings. This made them much more effective flyers that could easily catch smaller animals. While they weren't the top bats, they were still thriving. That wraps it up for the land creatures. For now anyways. But before I end this episode, we will go over one more animal, a descendant of the river dolphins that has ventured out into the sea, an animal we will become very familiar with next time. Thank you all for watching. I know some of you have been waiting a bit for this, and I hope you enjoyed this long video. I hope to see you all next time when we go over the oceans, rivers, swamps of Landermause. But for now, I'll see you later. Goodbye.